Good evening and a very warm welcome to your television news package for tonight. Making headlines, Their Majesties are in Thailand on an official visit. Yokosuka research vessel scientist reveals exciting survey results on Tongan Trench, and Government Primary School of Havelotan shows support to the Breast Cancer Awareness Month. These and more stories later on in this bulletin. I'm Fatai Whenga'a with your news for tonight. Their Majesties King Nabola VI and Queen Anas Pa'u are in Bangkok, Thailand on an official visit. This week, Their Majesties visited Chiang Mai Province in northern Thailand, where the governor of the province and the chief judge of the region welcomed Their Majesties on arrival. They will return to Nuku'alofa at the end of the visit to the Chiang Mai Province. They were welcomed on arrival by His Excellency Air Chief Marshal Shalid Bogazuk, the Privy Councillor who is a representative of His Majesty, the King of Thailand, His Excellency Mr. Pradit Sin Tavanarong, Minister of Public Health, representative of the Prime Minister, and a Director General of the Department of Information from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Their Majesties were hosted to a luncheon on Monday, October 14th by the Minister of Foreign Affairs at the Royal Orchid Sheraton Hotel. An audience was granted on Tuesday, 15th of October for Dr. Vili Fuavao, Deputy Director from the FAO Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, to provide an overview of agricultural issues of relevance to Tonga, including the FAO ongoing and recent assistance and the establishment of the FAO office in Nuku'alofa. The Majesties were accompanied by Mr. George Jen, the Honorary Consul to Hong Kong, to meet with Mr. Shanin Donavanik, the Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of the Dusiti International Group of Bangkok. The visit is an opportunity for Their Majesties to visit the House of Saladon of Zaramix Aware and the Otop Tourism Village of local dye products. Meanwhile, Daikuten Bell of Avao was also introduced to Their Majesties during her visit to Bangkok to participate at the FAO World Food Day Awards for Model Farmers for Outstanding Achievements. The Yokosuka research vessel from Japan has surveyed the Tongan Trench and found out more exciting results. Sinla Tuwazen filed this report.
Her Royal Highness Princess Charlotte Mafle of Pilolevu Tuita and Lord Tuita were present on the research vessel. Also present at the vessel was the Japanese ambassador, His Excellency Dr. Kazuchika Hamuro, and his wife. In a press conference prior to Her Highness touring the vessel, Dr. Hiroshi Kitasato says the survey aimed at exploring the Tongan Trench and living organisms in the area.
We got a very detailed bathymetric chart of the area around the horizon deep of the Tonga Trench and geological features in the fastest moving subduction zone. The trench is an area for the very active and subsiding oceanic plate were successfully revealed. Second, at depths of 10,805 meters and 6,250 meters at the horizon deep of the Tonga Trench, we achieved successfully sampling of organisms and sampling of undisturbed sediment in the upper layer of the seabed, sampling of bottom water, measurement of oxygen profile, and video recording of the seafloor.
Dr. Kitasato adds the results from the Tonga Trench will be compared with the results of their survey in the Mariana Trench. A professor in geology, Professor Michi Bayashi, is one of the scientists on board the research vessel, says they plan to carry out 4 dives in the Tonga Trench, but bad weather hampered the plan. It was then minimized to only 2 dives using the research submersible Shinkai 6500.
First dive, it's called 1369. We dived to the just west of Horizon Deep, because Horizon Deep is the second deepest ocean in the world. It's not so famous, but certainly that's the second best. Only 100 meters different to the deepest Challenger Deep. So we are very much interested in to observe geology, the western part of Horizon Deep. Then we expected to find some volcanic rocks because Tonga has some volcanoes, and also this island has many reefs. So, but in fact, we found some sedimentary rocks that's called mudstone and sandstones that are quite different from what we expected.
Professor Michibayashi says with the results of the survey they've conducted on the Tonga Trench, they will return to Tonga on the same purpose. The research vessel was last docked in Fiji and depart Tonga heading to the Kermadec Trench in the South Pacific Ocean. For Television Tonga News, I'm Sini Lato.
The Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs, Lord Ivano, is leading Tonga's delegation to the interim ministerial meeting of the Second Pacific Island Leaders Meeting known as BAM. The meeting will be held in Tokyo this weekend. Linda Fillier reports.
The meeting will enable leaders and foreign ministers from 16 Pacific Island nations to monitor the progress and evaluate the implementation of their commitments made in the PAM meeting last year. Information from the Prime Minister's office says during the meeting, leaders will also look at the topics and concepts, dates and venue for the Servants PAM meeting in 2015. In the meantime, this meeting also gives an opportunity for the Pacific Island leaders to review Japan's assistance towards Pacific Islands. However, they will also discuss the proposed summit on island countries and communities trade and product promotion on commercial agriculture. Tonga will host this meeting in the first half of next year. While in Japan, the Prime Minister will meet the Japanese Minister for Foreign Affairs, His Excellency Mr. Fumio Kishida, and other senior officials to reaffirm commitments to strengthening economic cooperation between the two countries. The information says Tonga will join other leaders from the Pacific Islands addressing issues relevant to bilateral and multilateral relations with Japan, including environmental issues, climate change, and disaster risk management. Tonga's delegation includes the Acting Chief Secretary and Secretary to Cabinet, Ahlo Tupalu, and the Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Vainga Tone, and they will return to the Kingdom next Wednesday. Linda Filiai for Television Tonga News.
A 13-year-old male was hit by a vehicle when he was riding a bicycle at the intersection between Hoi and Kolonga. He had injuries and scratches on his foot and was taken to the Moa Hospital. Information from the hospital says that he was in a stable condition. The offender, a 42-year-old male from Mawhanga, has been charged with negligent driving. Meanwhile, a 5-year-old male from Holonga was also hit by a van at Holonga last Friday. He's still at the hospital and under critical conditions. The offender is a 45-year-old male from Lapaha and has been charged and alleged of negligent driving and will appear in court on October 30th, 2013. Tonga will host the 20th consultation meeting of Pacific Heads of Education Systems. The two-day meeting will be officially opened tomorrow by the Minister of Education and Training, Honourable Dr. Anamawi Tauwhelungaki. Pacific Heads of Education Systems discusses outcomes of Foreign Education Ministers' meeting for implementation, issues and challenges common to the region, and also issues to be proposed for inclusion in the agenda of the next Foreign Education Ministers meeting in the Cook Islands in 2014. Participants will involve chief executive officers and directors of the Ministry of Education from 15 Pacific countries. The Pacific Heads of Education System meets annually to discuss outcomes of Foreign Education Ministers meeting. They also address implementation of the issues and challenges common to the region. The next Education Ministerial meeting will be hosted by the governments of the Cook Islands in 2014. PHES meets annually in the meeting held in Fiji in 2009 under more formal arrangements where UNESCO was endorsed as the interim secretary to organize yearly meetings and Tonga was appointed as the first chair starting in 2010, held in Fiji. The 2011 meeting was held in Palau and the 2012 meeting was deferred to be held this year in Tonga. Participants will include Head of Education from the Cook Islands, Fiji, Kiribati, Marshall Islands, Federated States of Micronesia, Nauru, Niue, Palau, Papua New Guinea, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Tokelau, Tonga, Tuvalu, and Vanuatu. Various donor partners will also attend the two-day meeting, which will end this Thursday. The government primary school of Whareloto and Tofua are supporting the Breast Cancer Month with a Mafti Day, where the money collected will be taken to assist the operation of the Breast Cancer Society. Linda Fillet reports.
Almost 600 students in Havelu Government Primary School have conducted a Mafti today as part of their commitment for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Speaking to Television Songa News, the principal of the schools, Whaingata Atau Ataina, says they are supporting the initiatives. The idea to carry out a Mafti Day was brought up during a meeting for the school principal in Tonga, and the Ministry of Education raised the need to conduct a fundraising aiming to support breast cancer. So we decided to have a Mafti and we collected 250 pa'anga. He adds they will also carry out similar fundraise in the coming month for the hospital week. I would like to thank all parents of the student in Havelu and Tofua for supporting us. I understand that we carry out Mafti every week, but today's Mafti is to help those that are victims of breast cancer. The Breast Cancer Awareness Month is marked in October every year.
The residents of Vava'u were fortunate to receive special eye treatment through assistance of the Fiji Eye Institute of Fiji. About 100 residents in the island were given treatment last week and will end today. Reports from our correspondent in Vava'u, Ludovico Tapueluelo, says the team is led by Dr. Munti Ngabo of the Solomon Islands. It includes medical doctors from different Pacific countries. They will carry out the similar mission in other 10 Pacific countries, and it was funded by a New Zealand company known as the Fred Hollows. And that's the Pacific News, the local news. Pacific News is up next.